Hello everyone, I'm the storyteller, and I'm here to accompany you today. I know you're watching this video to relax or help you sleep. So first, please like and subscribe. Where are you from? What time is it? Relax, unwind, and enjoy the moment. "Get down to the docks with that harpoon right now," yelled my boss over the radio. I was sweating profusely, rummaging through the old tool shed. It took me long enough just to pry the rusty doors open, let alone find that stupid harpoon in all of that mess. "What the is taking long?" My boss came in over the radio, the sounds of static, screaming, and rushing water chopping up his words like onions. I was throwing things at that point. "Where is this harpoon?" I yelled to no one. I kept throwing things, a large pile of rusty equipment beginning to form a rather impressive mountain just outside. "Ah, aga," I heard over the radio. And then, as if divinely illuminated to me, I saw it, the harpoon. A long, rusted, heavy piece of metal, wrapped at the bottom with what I could only describe as pirate rope. I lunged for it, tripping over God knows what as I did. My life flashed before my eyes as I watched myself stumbling towards the harpoon. Wham! I smacked my face hard against the wall, millimeters away from the edge of the harpoon. I grabbed it and ran back out of the shed, past the mountain of rusty equipment, ran down the access trail, across a parking lot, and finally down to the boat docks, where I could, upon entering the area, see the carnage left in that thing's wake. Most of the docks were splintered to tiny bits. I saw my boss standing on a bridge that crossed to the other side of the narrow part of the lake. I ran up to him, holding the harpoon at the ready. "You're far too late, Jimmy." I could see it was true as he pointed toward the edge of the alcove where it opened back up into the main body of the lake. I saw smoke. I saw the boat sinking beneath the waves, and I saw that giant, horrible tentacle dragging it down. "Did it ever, come all the way up?" "No, 4 tentacles is all we could see." "Did you get those guys off that boat?" "No," my boss said, his head drooping a little. Just then the sounds of 2 men gasping for breath and crying for help broke the stale silence that the creature had left in the void above the surface. My boss and I ran to the end of the docks, grabbed the life rings that we kept hung up on a post nearby, and helped bring the men ashore. What was that?" one of the men said, now standing safely on the shore. "No idea," my boss said. "You boys all right?" "I think so," said the other man. "That you all's truck there?" I said, pointing to the only vehicle in the parking lot. "Who else's would it be, Einstein?" said the other man. I just helped save a man's life, and still he felt the need to talk down to me. It's something about this ranger uniform. I might as well walk around with a big "kick me" sign on. The 2 walked to their truck, swearing and yelling about whose fault it was the whole way. They drove off, and just like that, the park was quiet again. Back near the ranger's cabin, my boss eyed up the massive stack of old rusty tools that I had built just outside the shed. "Clean that up, Jimmy. We've got appearances to keep up." On my way out to throw everything back into the shed, I gestured to indicate the cluttered station around us. My boss just raised a finger pointing to the mound of glorified trash we called tools sitting in the yard. I let out a sigh and left to do my job. "My name is James, and I work at Richard L. Hornberry State Park. The park consists of a 20,000-acre lake. The lake is also called Richard L. Hornberry. But, like the park, everyone just calls it Hornberry. At this point, no one even knows who Richard L. Hornberry was. I mean, maybe some local historian or surviving relative. But the general public and the park staff have no clue, nor do we care. We are too busy with other things. Surrounding the lake is about 1,500 acres of woods. The woods are separated into sections. This helps make navigating the park easier, but dividing it up couldn't have been much of a difficult task whatsoever. It is already pretty sectioned off via geography or geology, or both, I guess. On the north side of the lake, there is coniferous forest. A few thousand pine trees and cedars stretch from the shore of the lake all the way to the northernmost boundary of the park. The southern part of the park is just called the swamps, because it's a swamp. It is full of cypress trees and hanging moss and all that other swamp stuff. To the west of the lake, you've just got a large wooded area, coniferous and deciduous, but mainly deciduous. I think the only reason there are any pines or cedars over in that part is because seeds get blown over there from the north. It has plenty of steep ridges with big flat tops and valleys. On the east side, the woods are similar to the west side, but there are rock formations there. There is one main cliff line, but there are lots of boulders that, over the millions of years, have fallen down and created some cool little grottos. In the middle of the lake, there is an island. Officially, it's called Hornberry's Point, but everyone calls it Ricky's Roof. I'll explain why in a minute. In that northern pine forest, there's a little single-acre pond, just called the Trout Pond. No cool nicknames, I'm sorry. If you couldn't guess, that is where we stock the trout. The rest of the lake is stocked with walleye, striped bass, largemouth bass, crappie, bluegill, channel catfish, and I think some blue catfish. I am a ranger here, and I work alongside 4 other rangers. Their names are Aaron, Jordan, Richard, no relation to Hornberry, and Ellen. We all work under our boss Phil, but we all just call him Boss. When I took on the job, I was a bright-eyed, happy-go-lucky college grad, ready to sink into the world of park management and wilderness restoration. Simpler times. The National Park Service sent me here, and this is where I have to stay, until they send me somewhere else, but I don't think that will be happening anytime soon. The locals all say that the park is haunted, but they don't work here. It's not that it's haunted, I mean, sure it is that, but it's something more than that. You know how all those old 60s sci-fi shows talked about places just beyond reality? Like how technically, lore-wise, everything you see on the Twilight Zone happens in this fictional plane of reality called the Twilight Zone, or the people in the story were behind the veil, one step beyond, or hanging out in the outer limits. The way the show explained the anomalous and bizarre things that occurred in each episode was that the characters had stepped into a different reality. Well, that's what it's like here. While those daytime television characters of decades past might have only taken a step, or gone on a trip, into their respective anomalous zone, I work in mine. Weekenders might have an odd experience, hear a few sounds, or see something in the water or whatever. Day trippers might just get an odd feeling that boils up all day, and eventually boils over on them into something you might call the heebie-jeebies. They'll leave, talk about it with their buddies, hear all the local legends about the place, think they are dumb, and then move on with their lives. Generally speaking, these folks, who make up the majority of the park visitors, can get out unscathed, and with a relatively good campfire story to tell. In some other park, of course. It's the ones that try to do a week-long trip, or get lost, that usually suffer the worst fates the park has to offer. I spend most of my day responding to calls like, "The flock of crows up in the pines won't stop saying this hiker's dead wife's name," or "The squirrel pile is getting too big and it's starting to freak people out." The squirrel pile, as we rangers call it, is exactly what it sounds like. There's this place over by the cliffs where squirrel bodies just pile up. Squirrels routinely jump to their deaths in the exact same spot on the cliff line, and no one really knows how to explain it. No one really knows how to explain anything that goes on around here. You learn eventually just not to question things. It's not that we aren't allowed to ask questions, it's that nobody knows the answer, nobody knows why this park is like this, or why nowhere else has these problems. Theories have been spun around for years apparently. Old Indian burial ground, that's a classic. Large iron deposits on the east side of the lake. This is meant to explain why compasses don't work here, but it doesn't check out. It would be one thing if compasses just didn't work in the park, but it's the fact that they usually do work that makes the place so dangerous. Sometimes the strange things that happen here are just that. Strange occurrences, nothing really tangible necessarily. People say that if you're out on the lake, you can hear women singing or screaming. All the best fishermen say, which of the two you hear depends on how many fish you've caught. There's also a fog that moves around the park. It never dissipates, just moves to a different area. In fact, one of our jobs as rangers is to go out in the morning and catalog where the fog is on that day. Usually it hangs out in the swamps, but lots of times you'll find it in the cliffs or on the water. If the fog gets to the pines, the whole park has to go on lockdown. I haven't been here long enough to find out why, though. Phil says I don't want to know. But we track the fog's movements, and we've got a sign at the front of the park with exchangeable place name cards to warn visitors where the fog might be. Welcome to Richard L. Hornberry State Park. Today, the fog is in, but it almost always stays in the swamps or out on the lake. Then, of course, there are the various creatures that people see from time to time. If the same creature is reported enough, we add it to the catalog and name it. In the swamps, there's supposedly a 50-foot alligator, which of course is ridiculous. I've seen it myself, and it can't be a foot over 40. His name is Gary, and occasionally if one of those talking crows gets a little too personal with one of us rangers, we will go down and feed it to Gary. The only other creature that has a name is of course the lake monster. His name is Ricky. Ricky looks a lot like the Loch Ness monster. He's a bit of a rip-off, to be honest. But Ricky has become the park's mascot of sorts. We've got little cartoon drawings of him everywhere and signs, even some stuffed animal toys. There's a big cartoon of him on a wooden cut out on every beach that says, "Don't swim alone, kids." The sign used to read, "If you swim alone, Ricky will swim with you." But that sign unfortunately had the opposite effect of the one intended. The incident of 97, Phil calls it. I don't know, like I said, I'm aware of the birds and the 40-foot alligator, and of course the squirrel pile, but really, I don't know about the whole Ricky thing. Get real, am I right? While I haven't seen Ricky per se, I know what I saw this morning. I know I saw a tentacle dragging a boat to the bottom of the lake. I really don't know what to think of that. Ricky is like a plesiosaur or something. Those don't have tentacles. I don't know. My first year here, it took me a very long time to get used to all of the weird stuff. I can remember gasping in horror at my first sighting of the squirrel pile, feeling overwhelmed when my compass just stopped working in the middle of a hike, and how uneasy I felt when I first heard that uncanny singing out on the lake. Now though, 2 years in, all that stuff is just daily routine. Yes, I'm aware of the pile of squirrels. No, there's nothing we can do about it. I answer phone calls like that all the time. No, I don't know how the crows know your daughter's name. I'm very sorry for your loss. Classic crow move. They say ominous stuff all the time, but their party trick is dead relatives. Anyway, I thought I would keep an online journal of sorts. One of my coworkers suggested it to me. Ellen, I think I might do just about anything Ellen wanted me to. Just about. Ellen. Yeah. As I was saying, I think I'm going to keep updating this blog, or whatever you want to call it. Are blogs even a thing anymore? Since the events that make up my day-to-day are so strange, I thought that this little subreddit might be the best place for it. Until next time, James. And that's it for today. Thanks for listening. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like it, subscribe, and leave a comment letting me know what you think. Relax, unwind, and get some sleep. See you in the next video.